What up, Joe?
Hey, Drew, how are you?
I'm good. I'm good. So, for those of you joining us today for our little series that we're going to do here, today we're going to talk a little bit about the role of community, right, in anxiety and trauma recovery. There's some overlaps, there's some differences. I'm the anxiety guy, Joe's the trauma guy. So, let's talk about that. Community. Do we need it? Do you think we need it?
Absolutely. Absolutely. You can
Yeah.
only go so far doing this work alone. The problem is we're in shame, we're in hiding, we don't feel good about ourselves, we don't know how to express ourselves in safe, healthy ways. So we tend to isolate and hide who we are, and then we find that safe place as we pull in.
Mhm.
We're teaching ourselves that alone is safe. So we keep knocking more and more people and things and activities and places out of our lives, and the world starts to get smaller and smaller. And sometimes we need to do this because if we're a caretaker and take care of other people's emotions, paring down the people in our circles so we have more time to focus on us is important. But if you don't get out in the world and start showing yourself to other humans, you're not going to grow past the isolation.
Yeah, that's true. And that isolation, I know, in the anxiety community leads to the belief my anxiety is special. It's worse. I'm broken. I'm different than everybody else. Nobody has it as bad as me. You find the same in your community?
Oh, absolutely. I live that forever. I'm like, nobody can know my crazy because nobody else has it. I'm looking at a world where people are functioning at high levels, and I'm having trouble making it to the supermarket because it's too overwhelming. That mirroring face, that when you start to show yourself, I'm expecting to express myself in certain ways and get that negative mirroring face I got always had gotten back when I was a child and growing up.
Mhm.
When you're in the community and people understand the pain and your struggles, you get a better mirror, you get a better face coming back at you. There's empathy, there's understanding, there's compassion, there's rooting for, there's supporting. You're not going to get that on your own. If I don't feel good about myself, I don't know how to feel good about myself.
Mhm.
Isolation is not going to change that. When I get out in the world and I start showing myself, and people are like, "You're not the worthless piece of shit you thought you are." I'm like, "Really? Well,
Yeah.
tell me more." Well, you're good at this, you're good at that. I never saw it that way. So we have that one perspective, right?
Mhm.
Our own internal belief system. The only way that gets changed is by being a part of something greater than yourself, being part of a community.
Yeah, I would agree. You get that verification that you're not specially broken. And I know many times I've heard you say in casual conversation, for those of you who don't know, Joe and I have been friends forever. We've had many, many of these conversations. And I've heard you say so many times, for years, I was the best at being the worst.
I was the best, worst. Nobody's pain was like mine. Nobody hurt like I did. And what I realized, and nobody's really going to want to hear this, but your pain is ordinary.
But that's a
Your
good thing.
anxiety, your anxiety is ordinary. And
Yeah.
meaning that I know it's painful, I know it's uncomfortable, I know it's debilitating, but there are millions and millions and millions of people who struggle and suffer just like we do. We're
Yeah.
just doing it in isolation. When you start to come out of hiding and you start to show yourself, you'd be surprised at how many people start flocking to you and go, "Oh my God, I felt the same way. I didn't think anybody else ever felt like that. I thought it was only me."
Yeah. I thought I
Community.
was the only one is one of the most common things that I hear, like in my Facebook. I thought I was the only one.
Absolutely. I thought I was until I started telling my story. And then you have all these people come out of the woodwork and you're like, "Oh my God, have you been in my head my whole life?" And I'm like, "No, I've been in mine."
So the power of community, two ways. Number one, the validation that you're not special, you're not unique, you're not the worst person in the history of the world. Other people are going through the same exact experiences. They do know what it is. So you're not beyond hope because I'm the only one in the world that must think this way or feel this way. And the second thing is, if you have been, whether it's in anxiety recovery, maybe it's hard to get the world to understand that problem. We talk about that all the time. You're not going to necessarily get the level of support because they don't understand why you're acting this way. If you've come from a background where maybe there was abuse or trauma and you learn that you're not worthy, then you come out and into a community where you are worthy, where people will show you that, oh, I'm not automatically rejected and shunned and put down. That's
Right.
the two benefits there of community.
Absolutely. You have to find your place and your people that have what you have. See, nobody's talking about it. We all pretend and we all want to look shiny and glossy and status and got to have it together. We're all hurting. There's not a human on this planet that is not hurting. We're just not talking about it. And the less we talk about it, the bigger and stronger it gets. Once you can, I look at it this way: it's in the dark, it's buried in the attic behind boxes, and I'm not even going to acknowledge that it's there.
Yep.
When I can get there and shine some light on it and bring it out of hiding, I can get a better gauge. My perception of myself is so flawed, and my belief system internally is so flawed that I can't possibly see it another way.
Mhm.
I need other humans to show me that the way I'm acting and thinking is damaging. You
Yeah.
need that reflection,
Because
other opinions, different ways of looking at it, different perspectives. You're not going to get that alone.
And in a community where you can access sort of a recovery community or people who are living the same things, you, first of all, the validation that other people are living it too tells you that, like, oh, okay, well, then I'm not alone in this distortion, which means, you know, you start to get that little objective reality comes in. And number two, you're going to meet people who are ahead of you on the journey, who can look
Yes.
back and say, oh, I used to think that too. I used to say that to myself. I used to avoid such and such. So many overlaps here: the anxiety recovery, the trauma recovery, so many things. And the community can say that I used to be that way too. And I did this. And now I don't feel that way anymore. You don't get
And
that
that's
in isolation.
and that's another great thing about the community. Everybody's at different levels. I always use the analogy: I got on the parkway a little bit before you did.
Mhm.
People got on the parkway a little bit before I did. So they've been traveling on this road. So I have somebody to go to, I have somebody to look up to, somebody that's modeling a way of life that looks desirable to me. There's also people who came on after me, so that I'm a little ahead, that I get to help them.
Yeah.
When people get to help me, I get to help other people. And there's such a great healing in helping humanity. It's so good to give people what you've needed, which was empathy, love, care, compassion, positive mirroring.
Yeah.
That is healing. When you give that away and it gets reflected back as I'm helping somebody else, I'm also helping me.
Yeah. It's the greatest thing, isn't it? Feels good.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's the power of community. We have so much more to talk about in this. We're going to break this into little segments. So next up, we're going to talk about, like, do I have to be in community? Can I do the work in solitude? We'll answer that coming up in the next one. So come on back and see us again. And you should come and see us in New York City.
Yep. November 5th.
November 5th. We'll put it up on the screen. Check it out. Hit the URL right below. We can talk about all of this stuff. All right, guys. See you in the next one.